Sunrise, December 2nd, 1969. The Boeing 747 Superjet on its way to New York from Seattle with more than 100 North American newsmen aboard. This was the first flight to carry other than Boeing test crews. Leaving Seattle's Boeing field at 7:25 a.m., the plane quickly reached its assigned cruise altitude of 33,000 feet and bored its way eastward at a speed approaching that of sound. As soon as the fasten seatbelt sign was extinguished, nearly everyone aboard got up and literally started walking to New York. Reporters inspected every nook and cranny of the huge cabin. Sound cameras were set up, and reporters began taking notes. The 6 galleys were well provisioned with a myriad of delicious snacks, along with an ample stock of refreshments. Coffee, tea, or milk? The nearly 200 people aboard lost no time in sampling the wares. Because of the informality of the flight, everything was served buffet style at the large galleys. There was plenty of room for stewards and stewardesses to prepare food and still leave ample space for passengers to serve themselves. Upstairs on the flight deck, pilot Jack Waddell, who flew the first 747 on its maiden flight, welcomed newsmen 3 at a time into the control cabin. Prior to takeoff, the entire flight plan had been programmed into the inertial navigation system, and, coupled with the automatic pilot, it controlled the plane's course all the way to letdown in New York. The course was verified periodically at predetermined waypoints along the route. Heading east, the plane picked up a strong tailwind and at times showed a ground speed of over 720 miles an hour. During most of the flight, airspeed was near Mach 0.9, or over 630 miles an hour. Nearly 6 miles below, the Missouri River could be seen winding its way across the plains of North Dakota. Less than 4 hours after leaving Seattle, the Superjet was approaching John F. Kennedy Airport along the south shore of Long Island. In the distance, New York City could be seen through the haze. Touchdown came just 4 hours and 5 minutes after takeoff, a distance of 2,420 miles at an average speed of 592 miles an hour. A large crowd had gathered for the arrival at 2:30 p.m. New York time. Most interested were Pan American officials and members of the Port of New York Authority, which operates the airport. The most frequently heard comment from those who made the flight, both cabin crew and passengers, was the spaciousness of the interior, plenty of room for moving around, and after takeoff, losing the sensation that they were aboard an airplane. The wider seats, double aisles, and higher ceilings lend a feeling of roominess beyond that found in smaller jets. During the rest of that day and into the night, Pan American crews ran fit checks with various pieces of ground service equipment. Mobile cargo loaders and transporters moved up to the plane and simulated loading and unloading the lower cargo compartment. The scissor-legged galley service van restocked the plane in preparation for demonstration flights the following day. Because the plane was parked away from terminal facilities, mobile loading ramps were used during the stay in New York. The next day, a series of demonstration flights were scheduled for various airline executives, civic dignitaries, and airport officials. They were carried by bus to the waiting airplane. As the passengers boarded, they were welcomed by the cabin attendants who flew with them on the flights. When the engines were started and the plane taxied out, Port of New York Authority engineers checked sound levels at various positions around the plane. These tests proved the relative quietness of the 747 compared to other jets using Kennedy Airport. Because of construction taking place at the airport, a rather circuitous route had to be taken to get to the runway. But once there, the takeoff proved spectacular and thrilled those watching. During the first flight, Pilot Waddell made an approach to the Newark, New Jersey airport before returning to Kennedy. About 200 people were aboard on each of the 3 flights during the day, and all were enthusiastic about the 747's size, spaciousness, and comfort. Ground surveys were made during takeoffs in the parts of Brooklyn over which the plane flew as it left Kennedy. Everything indicated much lower sound levels than with other jet transports during climb-out. Following the last demonstration flight, the plane returned to Pan Am Hangar 17 and was prepared for its flight home. Finally, just before 8 o'clock at night, the homeward-bound passengers and 88 news people from the foreign countries which have ordered 747s boarded the plane. As on the eastbound flight, food and refreshments were plentiful. And again, as the lights of New York disappeared behind, the informal atmosphere took over and passengers moved about chatting and comparing notes on the trip. NBC newsman Al Wallace talked with Pan American stewardess Shirley Kettle.
Shirley, this is the second flight you made on the 747. What are your reactions to it? Now, just don't tell me it's a wonderful airplane. Go into it.
No, I really think it's great. It's going to be much more convenient than the 707 so far as working for the girls. It's much more accessible. Everything in the galley is. And we're going to have more times to talk with the passengers. And we are going to be more relaxed in our service than it has been on the 707 or even on the 727.
What specifically appeals to you on this airplane?
I like the idea of serving economy passengers from the cart because we can serve 36 passengers at one time with using just one cart, whereas before it would take 18 trips from the galley to serve 36 passengers. And I like this idea very much. We'll dish the food up right in front of the passengers. And then, of course, with the 3 galleys that we have, the service will be much more simple than it is now. And all the people, if they congregate in one area, we can still serve them from another area. So if they block the aisles, it won't be any problem at all. We can just go to another area and help them.
Is there a possibility that maybe there's going to be a little bit of the intimacy lost in this aircraft, or is there going to be more gained?
Well, I think it'll be more intimate than it is now because, well, I have to refer back to the 707s again. When we have a full load in economy, there are 3 girls, 3 stewardesses, to serve 127 people. And presently, when we start on the 747, we will have 3 girls to serve 80 passengers. And this is just almost 40 less passengers in each section of economy. And it's going to be a lot more personable and in a more friendly atmosphere and relaxed.
You think 14 girls working on the airplane is going to be enough?
I think so.
To the Japanese news people we have on board tonight, they're short in stature, 5'5", 5'6". What about overhead luggage compartments, for instance? Are they going to be able to reach them comfortably?
No, I really don't think so. This is where the girls come in, and we'll help them, and then there is still space under the seats in front of the passengers where they will stow hand baggage and other articles.
Shirley, why did you get selected to come on this flight?
I'm really not sure, but I'm very happy that I was.
ABC newsman Jack Eddy got these comments from stewardess Karen Milam.
What's your initial reaction to the facilities on the 747?
Well, before I was on board, I thought with 362 passengers, the workload would be much increased. But contrary to that belief, the work is much less. The galleys are so designed that the work for the stewardess is much easier, and she has more time to spend with each individual passenger.
Specifically, what in the galley is different?
Well, there's more room in the galley, for one thing, which allows the passenger to come into the galley for a buffet-type service. In one of the galleys, he can actually walk through and help himself to a smorgasbord-type meal. There's more room for coffee, for different types of beverages to be served, and there's room for more food.
Jack Waddell turned the controls over to Boeing pilot Don Knudsen and came downstairs to relax and chat with Joseph Sutter, chief engineer of the 747 project. The foreign press were just as pleased with the airplane as were the American. A few had difficulty expressing their feelings in English, but no matter what language it was in, it meant marvelous. Jack Eddy summed it up this way.
Finally, the advent of the 747 offers the passenger one more option. If you don't like the service, there are 13 other stewardesses you can choose from. This is Jack Eddy.